Namaste, everybody. Welcome to another Astro Bytes session. And today's session, I'm going to cover a very important topic, which has not been given too much of importance, and it is on Drekkanas. And in my study of nakshatras, I found that certain nakshatras behave very well in, the reason behind that, lies in the secret which comes from Drekkana. Now, Drekkana is also called as Drashtakon in Sanskrit. Now, Drekkana is a Greek term which is used to define, the three parts of a Rashi. So today I'm going to discuss about a specific form of a Drekkana which is called as the Uttama Drekkana or Sattwic Drekkana. And also in this session, I'm going to talk about the Vargottama Pada and the secret behind it. Now, in covering this topic, what I want to also say that whenever we see planets which come into this quadrant, or rather in this section, which is the Uttama Drekkanas, I found that these planets can behave in a very, very benefic manner. Especially, it can give you power, name, fame, recognition, and wealth. So if you look at some of the most prominent personalities and celebrities in the world, you will find that they have many of their grahas, including their ascendant, and a lot of their ascendants can be sitting in this Uttama Drekkana. So let's go back and study what is a Drekkana. A Drekkana is 10-degree portion of a Rashi. So if you take a Rashi, which is a zodiac sign is 30 degrees. So out of that 30 degrees, the first 10 degrees is called as the first Drekkana or the first Drashtakon. The second 10 degrees from 10 to 20 degrees of the Rashi or the zodiac sign is called the second Drekkana. And the third Drekkana would be from 20 degrees to 30 degrees. Now, this we are all aware of. Now, let's go and dig deeper to see how to look at the gunas of the Drekkana and why Sattvic and Uttama Drekkanas are supposed to be very, very beneficial. So let's go quickly and learn about this concept. And I'll also show you some example charts that can help you understand this concept. So what is Sattvic and Uttama Drekkana? And also, how do you derive the Vargottama Pada from the Uttama Drekkana? Okay. First, let's look at the guna of Drekkana. So we have three gunas, which is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So whenever we divide the Drekkana into three parts, this is how you can see the Drekkanas. So Aries, the first 10 degrees of Aries is a Sattvic Drekkana. The second 10 degrees of Aries from 10 to 20 degrees is Rajasic, and Aries 20 to 30 degrees is called as a Tamasic Drekkana. So if I have to put this in a nutshell, it's easier to remember if I say that all Chararashi means movable signs, cardinal signs. In all the cardinal signs, the first 10 degrees is called as a Sattvic Drekkana. In all fixed signs, Sthira Rashi, you see the second Drekkana, which is 10 to 20 degrees, is said to be Sattvic. And in dual and mutable signs, what we call as Dvi Swabhava Rashi, then the third Drekkana, which is 20 to 30 degrees, becomes Sattvic. So this is an easier way to remember the Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic Drekkanas. But in today's discussion, we are only focusing on the Sattvic Drekkana. Okay, now what is Uttama Drekkana? Nothing but a Sattvic Drekkana is called as a Uttama Drekkana also. That's another name. What is Uttama? Uttama means which is superior, which is good. So when any planets come into these 10 degrees of Sattvic or Uttama Drekkanas, they are supposed to be giving you very beneficial results. They possess the potential, they have the potential to give you greater and better results. So if you look at the table above, it's just showing you that the first Drekkana of all Chara Rashis, which is movable or cardinal signs, is called as Uttama, which Uttama means superior or good. The second and the third of Drekkanas of Chara Rashi, you can see is called as Madhyama and Adham. And Sthira Rashis, you see the first Drekkana is called Adham, which is not very favorable. And the second Drekkana is called the Uttama Drekkana. And in Sthira Rashis fixed signs, the third Drekkana is called as Madhya or moderate. And in Ubhaya or Dvisvabhava Rashi, which is dual or mutable signs, the first Drekkana, which is the first 10 degrees, is called as Adham, which is not very favorable, and Madhyam, which is moderate, and Uttam, which is superior. So the last Drekkana of a Ubhaya Rashi, which is a dual or a mutable sign, is called as a Uttama Drekkana. So the same concept I have given it below. So you see Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. In all these signs, the first 10 degrees of these signs are called as Uttama Drekkana. Then in Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, which are called as Sthira Rashis, fixed signs, the second 10 degrees, which is from 10 degrees to 20 degrees of these signs are said to be Uttama Drekkana. And in all mutable signs, Ubhaya or Dvisvabhava Rashis, which is Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, the last 10 degrees, which is 20 degrees to 30 degrees, are said to be Uttama or superior, they're good. Now, in this Uttama Drekkana concept, you have to know that each Drekkana is 10 degrees, so that will constitute 3 nakshatra padas. So each nakshatra pada is 3 degrees 20 minutes. So there would be 3 nakshatra padas in one Drekkana. So if you're looking at Uttama Drekkana, so you need to know that within the Uttama Drekkana, we have a total of 36 Drekkanas in the zodiac, because we have 12 Rashis, 12 zodiac signs, and 3 Drekkanas per Rashi, so that would be 36. Out of these 36, only 12 of them are said to be Uttama Drekkanas. So out of those 12 Uttama Drekkanas, observe that one pada of that 3 padas, which constitutes a Uttama Drekkana, is said to be a Vargottama pada. So here we would know that, Aries, the first Drekkana, and in that first Drekkana, Ashwini Nakshatra first pada is said to be a Vargottama pada. And the other 2 padas, which are Ashwini 2 and Ashwini 3, are said to be Parivartana padas, which are exchange padas, and they're given in their exchange padas are given in the brackets. Let's not go into that concept. I will probably teach that in another lesson that I can explain to you. So let's focus on the Vargottama padas and the Uttama Drekkana. Okay, so, and that will help you to understand the concept better. Let us not focus on the Parivartana padas for this lesson. Okay, now the secret of Vargottama pada is, if you really observe very clearly, that you will see that 3 nakshatras are said to be Bhinna pada nakshatras, because Sun and Jupiter are called as 3 pada or 3 pushkara nakshatras, and Mars is called as Dvi pushkara or Dvi pada nakshatras. So all these 3 nakshatras, Sun, Mars, and Jupiter, are called Bhinna pada nakshatra. Bhinna pada because 3 padas of Sun and Jupiter's nakshatras will fall in one sign and 1 pada will fall in another. In Dvipada, which is Mars and Mars's nakshatras, you will see 2 padas will fall into one zodiac sign and the rest 2 padas will fall in another zodiac sign. So these 3 nakshatras ruled by these planets will have 2 Vargottama padas. Okay, 2 Vargottama padas will be there. So for Sun, Uttarashada, which is again associated with the sun as the ruler of the nakshatra, Uttarashada. First pada and second pada is said to be Vargottama. And for Mars, Chitra nakshatra, second pada and third pada are said to be Vargottama. And for Jupiter, Punarvasu, third pada and fourth pada are said to be Vargottama. So Sun, Mars, and Jupiter will have two padas which are Vargottama. So in the entire zodiac, we will, out of 108 padas in the entire zodiac, we have 12 padas which are called as Vargottama. Out of those 12 padas, Sun, Mars, and Jupiter's nakshatras will contribute 6 of the 12 padas. 6 of the 12 padas of the zodiac, which are Vargottama, are contributed by Sun, Mars, and Jupiter, because each of their nakshatras have 2 padas which are being contributed as Vargottama pada. So the rest of the planets, so out of 9 planets, 3 planets are contributing 6 padas, and rest of the 6 planets will contribute 1 Vargottama pada each. So what do I mean? Ketu's nakshatra, which is Ashwini nakshatra, first pada is contributing 1 Vargottama. Moon is, Rohini nakshatra, second pada. So Moon nakshatra is contributing 1 Vargottama pada. Venus nakshatra, which is Purva Falguni, is contributing 1 nakshatra pada. Saturn's nakshatra Anuradha is contributing 1 nakshatra pada, which is Anuradha 4. Rahu's nakshatra, which is Shatabishak or Shatabishaj, is contributing 1 Vargottama pada, which is Shatabishak 3. And Revati 1, which is, so Mercury's nakshatra is contributing 1 Vargottama pada. So 6 planets will contribute, 6 Vargottama padas out of 108 padas, and Sun, Mars, and Jupiter will contribute 2 nakshatra padas. Okay. Now in this whole thing I've given in the remarks, if you can see, Ketu, Venus, and Mercury are giving their Vargottama in their Dharma pada. The first pada is called as the Dharma pada. The second pada is called as the Artha pada. The third pada is called as the Kama pada. And the fourth pada is called as the Moksha pada. Now, if you really see here, it's only Saturn which is contributing a Moksha pada, Vargottama pada, which is Moksha. And from the Artha, you have only Rohini which is giving you Artha pada. And Satabishak is giving you the Kama pada. Okay. So these nakshatras are very important, and their padas, which is their, that quadrant or their quarter, is extremely important in our analysis. And when we see that, most of the auspicious muhurtas, the timing of events can be aligned when you see the planets are transiting these Sattwic Drekkana and also these Vargottama padas, then it is even more prominent. Okay. But remember, in our analysis, we need to really look at multiple factors. I'll give you some tips to see how you can see that. Okay. Now let's go and see what I want to say, that why I would pick 3 planets to be very important if they are in Uttama Drekkanas. This is my research that I'm sharing with you, especially Sun, Jupiter, and Venus. When they come into Uttama Drekkanas anywhere in the chart, they become very, very prominent. Why? Is because their exaltation points are naturally falling in the Uttama Drekkana, whether it is the Sun at 10 degrees, whether it's Jupiter at 5 degrees of Cancer, and whether it is Venus at 28 degrees. All these 3 Grahas have a very important role to play in a chart, when especially they come into Uttama Drekkana's. Okay, now here are some of the tips for analysis of planets in Uttama Drekkana, and this is based on my research. So there could be many more things that you can look at, which is all the Parashari techniques have to be applied before you start looking at Uttama Drekkanas. Just by having a planet in Uttama Drekkana doesn't become, important for you, but you need to know that these planets should be in strong yogas. And also, the second point, their dashas and their antardashas should be coming. That is when, and with gochar, which is transits, should also show the prominence. That's when you see the native will rise to power, fame, recognition, name, wealth, and every other aspect you can see in the chart. Now, some tips to analyze the Uttama Drekkana when planets are sitting there. First and foremost, if Lagna, which is ascendant, and the Lord of the ascendant are in Uttama Drekkana, it will make the chart very, very powerful naturally. This is the first indication. That is not the only indication, but that's the first indication. Second, I have seen that if the Bhavakaraka Lord, okay, of the planets which are in Uttama Drekkana are in powerful positions, then it enhances the prospect of its beneficence. When I say, for example, let us say that some planet is sitting in the second bhava, which is in Uttama Drekkana, in the second house in Uttama Drekkana. If the disposition of Jupiter, which is the bhava karaka of the second house, is powerful, that is when that planet will also be very strong. The planet in Uttama Drekkana will be strong if the bhava karaka or the karaka of the house is also strongly positive. That's when it gives more powerful results. Right. The third is if planets in Uttama Drekkana are forming important yogas, unions, along with the fifth and or the ninth house lords, or in the fifth house or ninth house, then they will be even more powerful. Fourth, if the Uttama Drekkana, and the planets falling in Uttama Drekkana falls in the square houses 1, 4, 7, 10, and if these fifth lord or ninth lord are giving strong yogas with these planets which are sitting in the Kona houses, the square houses, then the Uttama Drekkana will give excellent results. Fifth, if the planet in Uttama Drekkana gets Digbala, which means directional strength, also they become very, very powerful and would have the potency to give you excellent results for the chart and the native. Planets in Uttama Drekkana give positive results in the dasha, the periods of their nakshatra lords. In whichever nakshatra lords these planets are sitting in Uttama Drekkana, during the period, dasha period of the nakshatra lord, they start giving you excellent results. And finally, as I have mentioned above, specifically look for Sun, Jupiter, and Venus. If they are posited in Uttama Drekkana, they will be extremely powerful and they will be naturally be able to give you better results. Now, in this analysis, please do not forget to also look at the Navamsha. That's another tidbit I can give. You have to see that the Navamsha doesn't negate the results of the planet sitting in Uttama Drekkana. So here are some of the basic tips that I'm giving you. There are many more ways of looking at Uttama Drekkana. There are specific nakshatra points which will give you absolute good results. But do not forget the Parashari principles when you're doing an analysis, because without that, just a planet sitting in Uttama Drekkana is not effective enough on its own to give you the results. Okay, let's go and look at the the chart of the late ex-president of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. He was an aerospace engineering scientist, and he was also called as the missile man, and he's worked with the defense and the research wing of India, and he has developed many space missions and also has helped with the military program and the missile program of India. So let's look at his chart. A fantastic chart. If you look at his chart, his ascendant is in Uttama Drekkana. Secondly, when I see that the Lord of the ascendant is in exalted position, it's extremely strong in the 8th house. And that's why he was working with a lot of secret things, because of the ascendant Lord being in the 8th house. 8th house is that depicts secrecy. So he worked on many defense related projects and is sitting in Ashlesha Nakshatra. Remember, Ashlesha is associated with the Nagas and the Sarpas. So obviously that position gave him to be a very secretive, mission oriented man, very diligent. Now, coming to see if he has to rise to becoming the president of India, which is, the most populated democracy on this planet. So with that democracy and the most populated democracy to head the state, you need to have a very strong sun. Now look at his sun being the 9th house Lord. I mentioned, planets of, if the lords of the 5th and the 9th are powerfully placed, then it becomes very powerful. So the sun is 9th house Lord, is sitting with the 10th house Lord, which is Mercury. So both sun and Mercury are in Uttama Drekkana. Remember, Mercury is also the 7th house Lord. 7th house is very important to give you vriddhi. Vriddhi means giving you success in everything, giving you a platform, giving you a recognition in the society. So without the 7th Lord, nobody can rise also. So the 9th house, 10th house Lord, forming a very strong yoga. Sun is also his Atma Karaka, the planet with the highest degree. It's also in Vargottama. Remember that sun is extremely powerful. Moreover, that sun gets Digbala, directional strength in the 10th house. Fantastic, because sun and Ketu get Digbala in the 10th house. So nothing can beat this chart with the sun and Mercury are both aspected by Saturn, which is also sitting in Uttama Drekkana in the 1st house. His moon and Venus are also in Uttama Drekkana. So including his ascendant, he has 5 planets in Uttama Drekkana. And his sun, which is his Atma Karaka, also getting Digbala, directional strength, sitting there with the, the Karaka of the Bhava Karaka. The Bhava Karaka of the 10th house is also Mercury. Mercury is in his exalted sign, in a sign of exaltation, getting very powerful, influence, and he was a people's president. If you have to be the people's president, then Saturn's aspect has to be there. The common man's aspect has to be there. So Saturn sitting in Uttama Drekkana in the 1st house is giving a very powerful 10th aspect on the sun and Mercury. So the missile man of India, the people's president as he was called. So very popular during his time and even after his demise. I think he is one of the best presidents that India has ever produced. Okay, let's go to another chart. This is the chart of Queen Elizabeth II, who's the Queen of United Kingdom. She is currently being coined as the longest serving monarch, and she's still going strong. She's 68 years of monarchy. She's been at the helm since 1952. Now let's look at a chart. Her ascendant is in Uttama Drekkana. I told you, when ascendant or the ascendant Lord are powerful, that's a key thing to observe. Now look at the Lord of the Lagna, which is Jupiter. which is sitting in the second house. Many of you would say, oh, it's debilitated, but there is a cancellation of its debilitation with that exalted Mars sitting there in the second house. And don't forget, Jupiter is the Bhavakaraka of the second house. So that's why that cancellation, and it's sitting there with the fifth house lord, the Lagna lord sitting there with the fifth house lord in the second house, in where its Bhava is also, that is becoming very powerful there. So that Mars and Jupiter is very powerful in that chart. Her sun is in Uttama Drekkana in the fifth house. If you want to be the longest serving monarch, holding, because sun is the king. Sun is exalted in her chart and also is sitting in Uttama Drekkana. So, and that too in the fifth house. Naturally, fifth house, in the natural zodiac, it is, Jupiter is the Bhavakaraka, and the position of Bhavakaraka is very strong, I have mentioned. Secondly, I've also said, naturally the fifth house of the natural zodiac is Leo. Leo is ruled by Sun. So fifth house, that Sun is very powerful. Being in its exaltation sign, aspected by Mars, who is the fifth lord, right? So it's giving it a lot of power because the lord of the fifth house is also aspecting that Sun. Ketu is in the first house and is the Uttama Drekkana. Ketu is considered powerful when it comes into Jupiter's sign. And Jupiter, and some of them also believe that Ketu is exalted in Sagittarius. So this position of Ketu also gives her the prominence. Rahu is also in Uttama Drekkana in the seventh house, and that's giving her a lot of vriddhi. I said seventh house, when there is a connection there, it can show you great prominence. Okay, so let's go to the next chart. This is a chart of the late ex-Prime Minister of India. She is the first and the only Prime Minister to serve India as of today. And she's Indira Priyadarshini Gandhi. Look at her chart. Her Lagna Lord Moon is in Uttama Drekkana, and that too in the seventh house of prominence, aspected by the seventh lord, which is Saturn. Let us look at her next planet, which is her Mars. Her Mars is a Yoga Karaka, being the planet of the fifth house and the 10th house. So it is a Raja Yoga Karaka planet, and that planet is also sitting in Uttama Drekkana, and it is sitting in her second house, and it is sitting in Vargottama. Very powerful position that the Mars is sitting in. Now let's look at the Bhavakaraka of Mars second. Jupiter is sitting in the 11th house. 11th house retrograde, and it is also sitting in Uttama Drekkana. So the dispositor of Mars is also extremely powerful. And I said, if it is powerful, it can give you a lot of amassment of wealth because it's happening in the second house of possessions. So, she could have amassed a lot of wealth by looking at this planetary position because of this combination of Uttama Drekkanas of Mars and Jupiter being placed in Uttama Drekkana, which is the Bhavakaraka of the second house where Mars is posited, which is also Yoga Karaka planet, very powerful position for that. Her Venus, which is also the Lord of the 4th and 11th, is also in Uttama Drekkana, and it is sitting in the 6th house with Rahu. Even though the position of Venus is not very great, but let's remember that that position can help you to vanquish your enemies because of Rahu's presence there. And Venus being in the 6th house, it can help you because Guru Shukracharya is with his student and his chief who rules the Asuras, which is Rahu. So Asura Raj Rahu with the Shukracharya is plotting and sitting in the 6th house, giving her, she was called as the Iron Lady as well of India. Let's go to the last chart just to let you know that this is the chart of the ex-president of the United States, who was the 42nd president of the United States, President William J. Clinton, popularly known as Bill Clinton. So if you look at his chart, you see his 9th house lord. I mentioned again, the more you see the 5th house and 9th house play an important role when they come into Uttama Drekkana's, they become extremely powerful. So Venus is the 9th lord in Uttama Drekkana, disposits Jupiter and Rahu in the 1st house. So that's why it becomes extremely powerful. 1st house is again the position of the sun. Sun is sitting very powerfully in Magha Nakshatra in the 12th house, even though it is in his Marana Karaka. He did have problems during his presidency or when he was holding his office. It was not a smooth sail, but I think he was one of the most popular, presidents of the United States. He served 2 terms and was very, very popular with his policies. Jupiter is his 4th house and 7th house lord, which is also in Uttama Drekkana, sitting in the 2nd house. I told you, 2nd house is the Bhavakarakesh is Jupiter. Jupiter becomes extremely powerful in the 2nd bhava. Jupiter is sitting in Uttama Drekkana and it is the 7th house lord, getting very much of prominence with that. And let us not forget that Jupiter is Vargottama. Vargottama means it is in the same house in the Navamsha as well. So the 3rd planet, which is in Uttama Drekkana, is his 5th lord, which is Saturn. Again, I reiterate, 5th lord, 9th lord become very important when you come to the concept of Uttama Drekkana. So Saturn being in his Uttama Drekkana along with his Lagna lord, Mercury, gave him a lot of prominence sitting in the 11th house. Okay, the 11th house position of Saturn is also emboldened with a very strong Bhavakarakesh, which is Jupiter's position. So that is, but it gave him problems because Saturn is also the 6th house lord. So the scandals were there, but he was not impeached and he could serve 2 terms with his head on the shoulders. So this is how Uttama Drekkana can really transform you and can give you a lot of prominence in the society, power, name, fame, recognition. So go through this concept, but just by the placement of any things in Uttama Drekkana, please don't jump to any conclusion because you need to do an in-depth analysis of the chart. So that was what I wanted to share today. I hope you liked this video. Please share your comments and I hope to see you in another Astro Bytes session. Thank you very much. Namaste.